meeting of the May 20th, 2020 Katuitt Water Commission to order with Commissioners Robinson, Horsley, and Hoppenstadt in attendance. Hello, gentlemen.
Hello.
Superintendent Wiseman and Jen assisting us as well. We also have Fran Parks from the Prudential Committee and a member of the public. So I would open by asking for any public comment. We will also entertain public comment during the meeting, but if there's any initial public comment, I would be glad to take it now. Hearing none. Chris, would you like to give us a superintendent's report?
Sure. Superintendent's report read on May 20th, 2020 for April pumpage. In April of 2019, we pumped 8,635,000 gallons of water. In April of 2020, we pumped 8,968,000 gallons of water for an increase of 313,000 gallons, which I think with everybody home, we're going to see an increase. I'm surprised that it's a little, that it's that high actually right now because we weren't really flushing as much, but we kind of started late last year too. So I believe it's because people at home are a little higher, but it doesn't concern me too much right now. That's not a scary number, put it that way. We did not have any new services or replacement services done. Really, the only thing I have on the security update that we have is that, as you know, we signed that amendment. The work from it has not been done. We haven't spent any of the extra money to them yet. They haven't billed us for anything. We do have a gentleman from Cayman who is a subcontractor of theirs coming in tomorrow to run a wire from our generator at Station 5 to our SCADA system, which was not there. Oversight when we did get that generator put in. So we don't know when it's running all the time. So if power's gone off down there and it kicks right on, there's no way to tell you that there's an alarm going off because it's uninterrupted power. So we've had that happen to us. Actually, it happened a couple weeks ago to us that we went in there on a Monday when it's been offline, last weekend, excuse me. And the generator was running. I asked the guy how long. He said, I wasn't here all weekend. We haven't had a pump in here. There was no reason to come in here. So didn't even know what happened. Well, we had no idea when. So the guy is coming. It's been in the works for about a month now. It's another add-on to Cayman's amount. It's still under our estimated amount, but they're just going to have to put a new relay in. And I already had the electrician run the wire. They have to come back tomorrow and hook it up. So they've scheduled to do that tomorrow. We did start flushing as of Monday. We had one complaint, but before we started, actually. So I'm not sure what was going on. I believe it's just on a dead end from a small line. I did talk to the woman today. She seemed to be okay. Station 5, as I started to just say there, we pulled the pump out, had the shaft brought back, straightened out, had some new bowls and bushings put on, and that went back in with the motor today. It still is underneath the budget that we had for the combined of Station 4 and Station 5 to be done. Not much, but it is. We had it all done for under budget, so we have to, it didn't get done till about 3:30 today, so it wasn't enough time to bring a sample in to test it. So we'll do that in the morning, and hopefully it'll take $2 then, $2, 2 days then. And
it costs $2 in your business.
Yeah, exactly. It's an old movie. I want my $2. Yeah, okay. So hopefully that'll be back online this weekend. I'm not going to trust letting it run on its own, but if we need it, we can always run it as long as we get a fresh sample from there. Sometimes when these stations are off for a week or two, when you go to put them in between the chlorine and the lime, lines guck up, get hard, and you get some air in the lines and everything. It usually takes about a day or two to get them regulated just right, so they're pretty reliable. But it will be there hopefully within the pass. If we get a pass on Friday, or if we get a pass at least on Tuesday, it'll be there for the summer season at least, and for the rest of the flushing that's going on. One thing that Jen did want me to tell you guys is we sent out 39 letters yesterday for the first round of lien letters. It seems that we have anything that's over 365 days past due. The amount right now is about $6,324.53. So we do have that out there. She sent out the 39 letters, and this is only the first round. We'll do it again, I believe, in a month, and let them know that it'll be coming. That's when I think we go registered at that point. Jen does start working on it, making phone calls here and there, and cuts down the list as best she can.
Chris and Jen, how does that compare with previous years, that number 36?
Very low. Previous years, we have been up around 80 accounts when we started. I've gotten it down as far as 39. I've given them a due date of June, told them we would be talking about it at tonight's meeting, giving them a due date of June 17th before we start the next round. I didn't say that, I just said it's due by June 17th. And that, we understand that COVID could have caused some financial hardships, and please call our office to talk about a payment plan or to discuss your account, so.
Tom?
I just said, great. I'm glad that you put that on there. That's super.
All right. The last thing I have on here is the tank cleaning. They came in and they've powered washed it. They had quite a dilemma when they first came. The first time they came in, one of the power washers died. They had to go buy a new power washer. I don't know if you saw the size of the lift that's down there. It's 180 foot tall. It can go up to, it's probably the biggest lift I've ever seen around here, at least. They went around the second day. After they only got about a third of it done, I asked the gentleman what was going on up there because it didn't look too good. And he says, well, you get some permanent staining on there, he believes. I said, well, have you tried putting anything on it at all? And he said, no. He said, but I'll talk to my boss about putting some kind of soap solution up there that's, going to be okay for the environment, blah, blah, blah. So I guess they went down and got some Simple Green and sprayed it on ahead of time. Guy told me things were coming off a lot easier. I said, great. He went back out there, called me the next day and said, we got a problem. He says, I was out there till midnight last night. We went to drive around on your lawn, and the thing sunk out of sight when we were up 180 feet. He said it started tipping over, went right down to the wheels and sunk out of sight. He said, because of soft dirt. He said they had Cape Way towing in there till midnight. He said, finally got out, great place. He said, great service. But, he said, we'll be back again. So he came back the next day, and I said, okay, you guys going to clean everything up? He said he was cleaning everything up over there, was done, called me about 6:30 that night on Friday and said, hey, we're all done. We finished, we're leaving. There's a little bit of staining on there, but we're done. So I was like, great. When I saw it Monday, I was like, are you kidding me? This is as good as it gets. So I ended up calling the gentleman who we signed the contract with and said, you got to do better than that. There's something has to be done. I said, it just doesn't look good. I said, there's got to be something out there. And I said, even the way it looks, I mean, it looks like you're cleaning in circles and you're missing spots. So he said, let me go back to talk to the gentleman who this was. He says, I'll see if I can talk to a couple other people in the company, and he's going to get back to me. He hasn't done it yet. So that'll be another phone call, maybe tomorrow, maybe Friday, and just to stay on him and see what's going on before that disappears. I'd rather, well, he's got something here and he can send someone down. It'd be nice while that lift's still there. So still working on trying to get it better. He did give me the answer of sometimes you just can't get all the staining off. He says, no matter what you do. And he says, it's on there too long. I said, that's only 5 years old, the whole tank, really. I don't understand how it can be so bad, but I don't know. We had quite a black scum in the air last year. That school, every time that old furnace kicked on there, had black soot pouring out of it, out of the chimney when it was running for a few years. So I don't know if it's that or if it is just mold and mildew. He says it's almost a green staining, so it makes me think it's mildewy.
Hey, Chris, I got two quick questions. Are you through
Sure.
with your report?
Yeah.
Before I forget. One is you mentioned the truck or the rig sunk or something. They had a problem
Yes.
with that.
Yeah.
Might that be from the water coming down and saturating the soil? And
I think he said, yeah, it's just real sandy soil too, and it's a heavy rig. So
Yeah.
they had to go get some plywood and put it out to drive on the plywood. It was just because of the tires themselves. So they went and
Okay.
got some plywood and went around doing it then. So I don't know if that had something to do with, if you look at it, it's kind of weird. Like I said, it just looks like they stood in one thing, made a circle, and the guy beside him made a circle with it. And you can kind of see where it looks almost like a pair of glasses up there where they kind of meet together. I'm like, that doesn't look right. Yeah,
second question I have is, have we paid? We haven't paid for this yet, have we?
not at all. No,
Okay.
they haven't got anything.
Yeah. Okay. Do we know? I'm sorry. Can I said two questions. One more, Mr. Chairman.
Keep going. That's all right. You got all day.
I can't remember. Do we know these guys that we hired do a lot of this kind of thing, or how do we find them? Or
They did
I
the
can't remember.
Santuit tank. Yeah,
Okay.
they did the Santuit tank over here, and it's a
Yeah.
beautiful job. It looked great afterwards. I was so
Yeah.
excited. And it's the
Yeah.
same company that came down. I did get 3 prices when I did
Okay.
it.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're a local company, localer, I should say. They're a company that used to be here that got bought out by a larger company.
Yep.
And I didn't use one of the larger companies in the United States, or at least on the Eastern Coast. They
Right.
both had the same price. The other one was about $8,000 more to do it, to come up from Pittsburgh to do it. So
Okay.
I did stay with the local company that we had worked with before. That's not the same crew,
Yeah.
I will tell you that, but
Yeah.
it is the same company.
Okay. I mean, it's my reaction to the report is it sounds like a little bit of inexperience, but I could be wrong.
Yeah,
But that's my comment.
right.
And,
And I don't know if that's the case or not. These guys, the company itself, we've worked with for probably at least 10 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
Since our last inspector left us. Other than that, any other questions?
Yeah, on the Santuit tank that they did so well, how long had that one gone before it needed cleaning?
That's a pretty good question. We cleaned it exactly. Hold on. It's funny because to the day that they were actually here cleaning it, there was a reminder that came up because I took some pictures and put it on Facebook or something like that. And Matt came to me and said, hey, it was exactly 3 years ago today that this was done. I think it was, or 2 years ago. So I'd have to look back into my photos and my phone, and I could tell you how far back that was, because I didn't delete it.
Well, or, how long it went before it needed cleaning, and did we wait too long on this one so that the state?
It was a longer time. We must have went 10 years, close to 8 years, I think, with that last one.
Oh, on the Santuit
Yeah,
one?
on the Santuit, yeah.
And this one was 5 years.
Correct.
Huh.
And like I said, I don't know if it's the location closer. It's a smaller tank, so it's wetter.
Yeah.
The location closer to the ocean.
Yeah,
And it is a different paint job.
a little different
Also.
paint too, right?
We couldn't afford the hydroflon paint that we put on down at Santuit, which is got a 20-year lackluster guarantee on it.
Well,
We couldn't afford that, so we just went with the normal tank 2-part epoxy, I believe it is, that they mixed together and put on there. So it's not as good a grade as paint as the one on Santuit.
Okay.
Okay, thank you for that report, Chris. I would just like to commend you on the being sensitive to the flushing issue previously and getting that back on track. And I think that having a little hiatus in the program, I hope didn't interrupt your workflow too much.
We're pumping a lot of water right now, so I'm hoping we can still do it. I do have to put out a thumbs up to JR, who has been doing it basically by himself out there. He wanted to do it. He came to me and asked me if he could do it 2 years ago, did it last year without a problem really to speak of, maybe a couple landscaping issues here and there. But other than that, he asked me again, I asked him if he wanted to do it. He said, please. He wanted to get right out there and do it again. And when I told him we were going to do it again, he says, where do you want me to start? Let's go. And he just ran right out and did it. I got a good bunch of guys. I have to say it. They don't argue about anything really.
Yeah.
I don't know if
I
that's
think
that great.
I think that's a tribute to your leadership too. And I think JR, he's exuberant about it. I saw him out there at like, I don't know, 4:15 yesterday, and he was all smiles and thumbs up. It was great to see.
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So any further questions to the superintendent? We will get to some old business. Last time we spoke, we used a lot of time to discuss the irrigation policy proposal that Commissioner Horsley has been bringing forward to us. We had some initial thoughts, and I don't know if Scott, you've had a chance to respond or think about those. So basically,
well,
it was to approve 2/3 of what you were proposing. I think if you had some thoughts on the final third, which involved the actual removal of some of these systems.
Yeah, I mean, I still believe the policy or regulation is appropriate and would be helpful. I think that given some of the comments we got, perhaps we could move ahead, or I would propose to at least consider moving ahead with all but one of the provisions, which is the removing of the systems from the public water system. Meaning, I'm just opening it up right now. I think that perhaps the most significant or impactful provision would be to require taking off all the existing systems over a 3-year period. But the other two major provisions, which are no new irrigation systems on the public water supply, and secondly, requiring water sensor systems, seems to me a minimal move forward to address this issue. So I guess my suggestion would be see if we could move forward with those two provisions and maybe hold off on the third one, which was the item number. I don't know if you guys have a copy of that handy, but item number 3 was to, as of May 1st, 2023, all automatic irrigation systems must be disconnected from the water supply. I guess what I would propose, just to move the thing forward, would be to eliminate that provision or delete that regulatory requirement and move ahead with everything but, which again, in essence, that would be no new systems going on the public water system, meaning requiring them to have a private well, and secondly, requiring them to have the rain sensors smart system, which to me seems like, a minimum kind of situation. So that would be my proposal. I understand that we'd like to have a broader in-person public hearing, but that's my sense is that's not going to happen anytime quick. And we are approaching the irrigation season. And from my discussions with the two professionals in the business, they seem to think updating the systems with the rain sensors seem to be a good idea, cost effective and fairly easy to do. And it just strikes me as a little inappropriate to consider adding new systems, new irrigation systems, given where we're at right now. So that would be my proposal: move ahead with the regulation, with the exception of provision 3, which was the sunsetting or the removal of systems by 2023.
Okay. So that's the motion. Is there a second for discussion?
Yeah, I'd like to just, I would second that. So
Okay.
moved and seconded. But I would also like to talk a little bit about something I brought up at the last meeting, which was if they don't feel comfortable putting their own well in, could they and should they be able to hook up a separate meter for irrigation water that they pay a higher fee for, and they use our public water supply for that? I think that would help for some folks that just don't want to put a well in. They might have wetlands around, they might have a pond around or close to a river, and they want to just use the system they have, but we don't want them to use it for irrigation, so perhaps they could get a separate meter for the irrigation system. And I brought that up last time.
Yeah, I think that's important to think about. Chris, do you have some thoughts on that idea in particular and the overall policy in general?
Well, I kind of like what Tom's saying there. I just don't know how we'd go about setting that up through, and Jen could help me here. Would we have to get another account number set to that to do a special irrigation fee or irrigation rate or something to that effect? I would think that we'd have to establish a new account to keep track of that. I don't have a problem with that.
What would you attach the meter to? I don't understand the mechanics of it.
It would have to
require a new
be,
line?
they would have to get a plumber in there. We'd have to go in with a regular meter and hook it up just like we do coming into the house.
Yeah.
And then lock it into there and everything else, then, and make sure that there's a locking mechanism on it, whether it's a seal or something like that. Because that would be, excuse me, the biggest thing that I'd be worried about is people trying to remove them, turn them around, things like that. Anybody to mess with them. Normally, if they just know that's just going to be the high flow, there are crooked people out there. That's the only thing. I hate to be negative, but there are some people that will mess with them. So I just don't know how we go about on that on the billing side. I'd have to refer to Jen on that.
It's definitely a one-to-one account relationship. So one account or 1 meter per account.
Right.
I'm sure there's a field that we could designate it as an irrigation meter. I don't know what the capabilities of our billing software is to identify that meter as something unusual, to trigger it into the irrigation price tier, whatever we set that to be. But I could have those discussions with the software provider and see what they tell me.
And
Let
if
me,
they do this,
oh, sorry. Go ahead,
that's
Chris.
fine. If they do, I would kind of suggest even doing it as an account itself in there where they're not going to do it for free. If it's a new house that needs to have something like that, maybe have an account, whether it's a $600 irrigation connection fee or something like that, but it could put a standard one out there to say, if you want to put in a sprinkler system, it's a $600 account fee, and we'll hook an account up, and you got to put the space and have your plumber come in, and we'll supply the meter, but we want to see it done, and we'll lock it into place for you. Just like turn on a new house, except it'd have to come inside the house.
So we haven't thought about what kind of premium rate would be assigned to this new irrigation meter.
Correct.
So-
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I think Tom's idea is a good one, and I am sensitive to it, but it does strike me as somewhat complicated to implement. So one other option I might offer would be to allow people to come in for waivers or variances. My sense, Tom, is that your point, which I think is a good one, is what if they can't put a well in on their property without impacts to wetlands and stuff? So it seems to me we could provide a waiver, which I think is appropriate in any regulation, to allow people to come in and say, I need I want an irrigation system. I guess it would have to be want, and I can't do it without impacting my wetlands. Therefore, I have to go on the public water system. Would you consider a waiver? So that would be the other way potentially to handle this. And I guess what I'm thinking, part of that is thinking we already have higher rates for higher usage. So in a sense, we already have a structure to charge people more money for large water withdrawals, including irrigation. So maybe that's another option. Again, I support your idea. I think it's a good one, but maybe there's another way to get at that through a waiver process. I don't know.
And Tom, would this be for new systems or just retroactive? In other words, Scott has proposed originally to prohibit new systems, and so are you saying that the new systems could go in if they were willing to pay this premium and have a separate meter?
Yeah. So they could either put their own well in, or let's say they're living on the ocean and they're like, well, geez, I'm low elevation. If I put my own well in, I'm going to be sucking salt water into it, right? So I can't do that. So, but I'd still like to have irrigation. And so I'll pay more for that irrigation water. And let's make sure that it's the irrigation water that I'm paying more for, because I can do my efficiencies in other places, right? And I just don't know. I don't know. Maybe it's too onerous on the system, on plumbing and billing. But to me, it seems like you just, okay, yeah, you can run a brand new line in, and it goes to a separate meter, and that's hooked up to irrigation, and that's all, right? I'm probably thinking it as too simplified. It was just something that came to mind. That's all.
Sounds like we have a little more thinking to do. And I still feel we haven't really advertised this very well, other than on our agenda and minutes. I think it's something that we ought to put at least on our website for people to go and take a look at. Have we had a chance, Jen, for people to even look at what this policy says? In a public, in a pushing it out publicly way?
The document that you gave me after the last meeting with the pictures of the wetlands in it, that has been posted to the website, but we haven't
Not the
advertised a
policy.
conservation policy at all. Nope.
Yeah. So I would like to at least put the policy on the website, and maybe, you could put it on the Facebook, and, just try to push the information out a little bit, see if we get response. And if we do, I mean, it wouldn't be a bad thing when we could meet in public to invite some of those irrigation professionals that Scott mentioned that he had talked to, and invite them for a workshop. I don't think what the first two parts of the policy are very outrageous or concerning. I think they make good sense. I'm just more concerned about the process, I guess, and how we get there, particularly with these Zoom meetings. We have basically one person from the public attending and learning about this. I don't know if anybody else is watching it on recording, but I tend to doubt it. So I just think that this is something that, of course, we could adopt and then go back and amend later. I know Scott would like to get some feeling of accomplishment here, but I personally think that Tom's come up with a good idea. Maybe we could wrestle that to the ground a little bit. Scott and Jen could think about the billing part of it. And he who submits the proposal has to write up some wording for it.
Got
I
it.
also,
That's you, Tom.
Oh, okay.
I would also.
So Tom's going to write you an amendment to your proposal, Scott.
All right, your amendment. Well, that's something that I'd be willing to do. And maybe it's as simple as saying, instead of saying if you want to irrigate your yard or your property, then you have to put in your own well. Maybe we don't say that. We just say you have to find an alternative source of water that may be available through us, or it may be available through your land, right? And we leave
Or
it.
your
If you do adopt it, you should have a future implementation date, because people are going to need to have an opportunity to make changes to their system or dig a well if that's what they're going to do. But even if we have an implementation date that's in the future, that would be helpful, I think, and give you time for public education on it.
Yeah. And then the second provision on adding conservation and efficiency measures, I think that's just something we should do now. I mean, yeah, we could push it out and say during the next year, we want everybody's systems to be upgraded with those devices. I think that's reasonable, because now is when people are at their properties doing their work on that sort of business.
And how do we ensure compliance with that? As Chris has expressed, he doesn't want to become a policeman snooping around people's systems.
Well, that's tough. That's that's the conversations I've had with people that have irrigation systems. They're like, yeah, we had those in place, and they were so difficult to work with, and they were cumbersome, and they didn't work, so we don't use them anymore. And yeah,
It's customers, Tom, or installers?
people that have irrigation systems, so customers.
Tom, I'm sorry, could you repeat that? They said they're too
So
complicated, therefore.
Yeah, they said they didn't work well and they were difficult to adjust, and so they just
Yeah.
stopped using them. They're still
Yeah,
on
'cause-
their systems, but they're dysfunctional.
Because when I would like to comment on that, because when I had this very good and I think honest conversation with these two professionals who really seemed like they knew what they were talking about, they actually offered that as one of their concerns, that sometimes, and they may have used the word oftentimes, I don't remember, as you said, something happens, these people stop utilizing the rain sensor systems and they go back to just watering every morning at 7 a.m., whether it's raining or not, which really undermines the efficiency of that technology. And again, I just think we have a significant concern here, and I would argue that it's not only a environmental ecological concern, but an economic one. We have a report that we haven't dealt with yet that says we have to spend millions of dollars potentially to upgrade for iron and manganese, et cetera. And I don't want to push this too hard, but I really think we need to do something. And while I am all for public participation, Mr. Chairman, we don't have a lot of people that show up to our meetings. I suspect we don't have a lot of people spending a lot of time on our website. I don't know what the answer to that is. I already offered to Mr. Danhauser that we could do a presentation at a community meeting, but they're not meeting either. So it's kind of a difficult time, but it just strikes me, and I'm happy to work with Tom and others to revise the language, but it seems to me we ought to move forward with something. I think we're getting, my sense is we're getting mired in bureaucracy here.
Well, I've run on a platform of public transparency. I don't know anything about water systems, okay? I know a little bit about government process, and as I know you do. And any regulatory board would put this out for public advertisement, put something in the paper.
Yeah.
You know, we did a very good job, I think, of the public process for the water rate increases. And
still the phone rang off the hook.
yeah, right. So we saw
Hey,
the
Mark.
front end.
This is Carol Zace calling. We can certainly send something out to our 400 plus Katuitt Civic Association members if needed as part of your reach during this period of time when we're not having meetings yet.
Great. Thank you. That's a nice offer. I don't think we haven't really finalized the language of the draft proposal anyway. So I'm thinking that the sense of urgency here, is there something, Scott, that you would like to accomplish because we're approaching the summer season? Is that the idea?
Well, I think a step forward would make sense. And as Tom said, I mean, there's three main provisions here. One is to get the systems upgraded to current technology on rain sensor, with the footnote being they often don't use that anyways, or sometimes don't use that anyways. The second one is to have some sort of a, moratorium, maybe at a minimum, or no new connections, given the fact that we're pumping near capacity. And I guess I'd put that back to Chris. I mean, one of the messages here is we're pumping the system at near capacity during the summer. Is that right? Do I have that right, Chris?
We have been in the past, and if anything happens like it has started now, we've just started pumping 2 pumping stations at the same time in the last week and a half. So we are
Every
things are
indication
picking up.
And every indication is we are drawing water from the river and the wetlands. I think that's a fair assumption. So I think we need to take some steps forward. I'm okay waiting another 30 days, but and I'm one of 3 votes here, so whatever. But it just strikes me that we should start moving forward. I guess my concern about the public process, while I wholly support it, I don't know. I guess I'd like to ask what would be a good way to get input on this.
Well, the point is that we haven't really done a very good job of getting this out to the public yet. So whether or not the public responds is not as important as being able to say we tried. And we haven't tried yet.
So what's the best way to get it out, I guess?
We don't even have a draft policy. I mean, we've got an idea today that's swirling around, makes some sense. Tom's going to put it on paper. So, I mean, if you wanted to propose tonight a moratorium that we could vote on tonight, a moratorium on new hookups to the system while we're developing this draft policy and expose it to the public, I'd be in favor of that.
So moved.
Again, I don't.
I'll second that.
I think we've talked about the fact that we're not even aware sometimes of when these systems go in. So we can put a moratorium on it, but I'm not sure how effective it would be. But if that's the case, to send a signal, and maybe this will get people's attention that, oh, something's afoot in the water district with the on irrigation, we better find out what that is. They got a moratorium on it. I think that would not be a bad thing to do. And a moratorium does not imply an eventual ban. It just means something is being proposed and studied, and there's some breathing room for the policymakers to figure it out.
I think that's a good idea. I think that might.
So you want to make a motion in a second for that?
I do. That's a motion. I would move that, and I would comment that I think that's a good idea. That might generate some interest and discussion, because a moratorium can be, eliminated as soon as we realize it's a bad idea, or move forward into a more comprehensive regulation if we realize it's a good idea, and that might generate some public input. So that I would move that we issue a moratorium on new connections to the public water system for irrigation.
That's pretty simple. Is there a second?
There's a second. I was second.
Moved and seconded to propose or to adopt a moratorium on new hookups to the public water supply for irrigation systems in the Katuitt district. Is there any further discussion?
So
How would you like me to publicize that?
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
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 Aye, it's unanimous. So, Jen, I think all the ways that you might do that, if you want a Facebook website, if you want to buy a little ad on the Patriot, I can help with the press release if you want to do a press release.
So, and it's for systems, for proposed or irrigation systems that will utilize existing public water supplies, right?
I think the term they use, Tom, is automatic irrigation systems. No new automatic irrigation systems shall be connected to the public water supply. And I guess the only question I have in implementing that, and we talked about this before, and I don't recall the answer, is how do we police that? Is there a checkoff? And I think, Chris, you may have mentioned something when somebody, most of this is going to be either a new home or a addition or something like that. What's the trigger where we get a chance to, regulate that? Chris, I think you commented on that before.
Chris, you're muted. You got to unmute.
Sorry about that. The only thing we could really do is talk to the plumbing inspector and ask him to keep us aware, or at least let him know that it's not allowed in Katuitt. And maybe in the next mailing, we'll put out something simple like that. But in the next set of bills, we'll just put a little Post-it note stating the same thing, that right now we don't want anything. We don't want an irrigation hooked up to the potable water system.
Okay, let's amend the motion. We also need a cutoff date. 3 months. That should give us enough time to develop the policy and advertise it. Right? Is that acceptable, Scott?
3 months. What's it now? May.
A 3 month moratorium.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. Yes, okay. 90 days.
So we're going to reopen the vote to amend it to include automatic irrigation systems and to have this proceed from 90 days from today. Okay.
So moved.
All those in second?
Second it.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Did you get all that, Jen? I'm sorry for the. Okay, great.
I did. So you're going to help write a press release. I will post that in the Patriot as well as our Facebook page, the district website, and maybe an insert for the July
And
mailing.
also, Carol suggested that the Civic Association would be happy to help that.
Okay.
So that's several different ways. Again, we're trying to get people to learn things. We can only lead the horses to so much water, so to speak. Okay, so we'll move on to our property on 414 Main Street. And this is the old water tank site. Maybe Jen, if you could figure out how to put up some of those slides that I sent you yesterday.
If
Just
you
so
can
that-
pull up the PowerPoint, I can walk you through sharing your screen because I don't have them on my computer.
Okay. That's going to be a problem. Let me see. Well, let's start talking about it. Chris, did you take a look at those pictures? Do you have some comments
Yes.
on what we can remove? Before we do that, I want to just mention that AmeriCorps has been temporarily disbanded
Right.
because they were living in congregate housing. And so we don't have access to them. Oh, somebody's putting it up.
I just did that.
Job.
Nice going.
There you go.
So we don't have AmeriCorps' help that we were counting on to do some plantings out there. And we probably won't do any plantings until the fall now anyway. But I just think that it is our front door to Main Street. It's our only frontage on Main Street. And it's not very attractive. It's got a hillbilly street sign, 414 on it. If you go to the next slide, Scott. And obviously that was for the work crews to find the right site, but it's not advertising the water district very well. Next one. This is the view from Main Street. I don't know what that thing is, but
That is a
it
sample
really
station.
bothers me as somebody who's interested in aesthetics. I have no idea what that is. Is it a Dixie cup dispenser? I don't know.
That is a
Uh,
sample
that's waste.
station. That's our sample site. We have to take a sample from there every month. So that's hooked up there to take.
Maybe we can hide it with a bush.
Well,
right?
that was my intention, to put some kind of bush there, or even build a building over it eventually, and put a couple bushes there so the neighbors don't have to look at it.
So these are just the simple things I wanted to discuss today. It's really,
Yep.
Chris, it's on you, but
That's okay.
This is I don't know, it's a half acre probably that's been cleared. That's the part that I'd like to try to replant. We'll get
Correct.
some help digging holes. And then we've got if you keep going here, we've got the entrance into the cell tower. We've got the ratty siltation curtains there that need to come out. We've got this gate, which is, oh, you go back. Number 6 there, Scott. There you go. We've got this beautiful gate, which is doing absolutely nothing. Anybody can drive around either side of it. It's like a gate to nothing. So maybe a boulder on either side. I don't know. Split rail fencing, something that shows that we're trying to secure the property without denying access to the self-service crews. Next. This is the old gate that is at the intersection of the old post road as it leaves the cell tower site. And, keep going. A view from that gate looking at the old temporary cell tower and water tower site. Chain link fence, which I don't think still has to be there. We'll come back to all these, but let's keep going. Next. Again, the siltation. We've got old tires out there. Debris. Next. That's looking back towards Main Street from the yellow gate. So this is actually an important site. Let's go back.
All right.
This is an important site. So what, Chris, you told me last year is that this is the extension of Old Post Road as it comes out to Main Street, and you think that we need the town DPW permission, perhaps the town council, to actually close that off as a traveled way. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. Next. These are where the concrete, what they call cows.
Yep. with it, yeah, with the.
So there are 3 or 4 of them that were out there. This is soil that's compacted and crushed stone. There's nothing that's ever going to grow in there again unless we can rough it up, maybe. Next. Just another view of the fence. Next. So here we've got some overhead power lines to the the old tower site. Kind of unsightly. Do we need those wires? I guess we've got a utility box. Is this serving anything anymore? Next. We've got a Reopen America sign that's been vandalized in front of the gate. And it looks like most of the meters have been taken out of that box, so I'm wondering if it's still useful for anything.
Sorry.
So I guess those are all the photos, but you want to just comment generally, Chris, as to what can come out and what has to stay?
Sure. Just where we are on it, kind of that sample tab does have to stay. A place that has to be done. I have put in a work order. One of them was to remove all the meters there. And when did you take that picture? Was it this weekend? Last weekend?
It was 2 days ago.
2 days ago? Yeah. So they
Yeah.
must have gone in there one day. I didn't notice they were in there. I hadn't been in there in the last couple of days. To have the wires removed and to cut off at the street to get all the power removed from the area. We do have to keep the chain link fence up right now because there is a vault that has a hole in it up there that's a danger to the public if somebody gets in there and messes around. So we still have to keep that there until I can get the electricity out of there so I can get somebody in to cave in that vault. I got to get somebody in there to do that. Those footings are huge. If I can get them to bust a little bit of it apart or at least just get rid of the major stuff that's there, that's what I want to do. But I was hoping once the electricity's gone to get 3 contractors in there and have them move that gate at the same time beyond the cell site itself and to where that road picks back up so that it'll fit across the road and it'll actually be doing something again, at least try to prevent people from going into the well field. And kind of if somebody gets in touch with, I don't know if it should be Dan Santos. I don't know the highway department. I'm not really sure who over there, but about possibly putting something at the beginning of the road.
I'll take that on as a task.
Okay.
We had success doing that with Cordwood Road next to Eagle Pond.
Right.
Did have to go through the council, the town council, but we did get it accomplished.
Yeah, and if they could shut it off before that, that's one thing. But there is a water main that goes down there, so we'd have to have a key that runs through. And where it comes through, it goes at an angle across the outside of the fence, kind of like where the other cows were. They are in between the two, kind of ran across and connected back in where the old entrance is going in. So a lot of that stuff's in the works of being disconnected and taken out. They can tell me at that point.
Who's doing the work, Chris? Is it our crew or is it the cell tower crews?
I put in a work order to Com Electric to have them do it, or excuse me, Eversource. So I went through Kathy White there. This is the second time I've asked her to remove the meter that's down there and put in a work order to have it done. But she said she'd put it in to be done. I'm like to go down now. I see that the meters aren't in there. I'm wondering if somebody might have gone up and disconnected the actual services because I couldn't dig any in there with the live wires. And I don't know, they wouldn't, because of COVID, they wouldn't meet anybody out there. I had Russ actually help me out a little with this, and he could notify them and asked if they could have one of their engineers come down and meet us so we could see exactly what we wanted removed. She told us that the wires would be removed, but the poles and the transformers would be left there. They don't remove them. So at that point, if the wires are gone, we can cut the telephone poles down, maybe rip out the transformers if they're disconnected. All that stuff can be taken out and trashed at some point. Like I said, we still just got to make sure we can still keep access somehow in there to get to the water main if there's ever an emergency. And that's the only thing that worries me there. And we should put something up, make a little point there where that sample station is. I thought we just put like some arborvitae's out front and maybe a little stone area there where the guys can pull the truck up and drive behind it and everything.
Yeah. Good. Well, I'm glad to know what it is.
Yeah.
So what about just the general cleanup, the siltation fence and the old tires? Is that something that we have to do? Or
I can give a call to the company that built this and tell them, you know, it's been over a year. Can you guys come in and get rid of that stuff? They're not driving trucks in anymore or anything like that. So I don't think they need it there for any kind of conservation reason or anything.
they're not doing any good. It's like a work limit fence and it doesn't need to be there anymore.
Yeah, so I'll make a mention to him and tell him that I'm starting to get a little push from my bosses, so I have to push him. That's all. And I'll make a note to give him a call.
If we need to put street numbers on, can we go to the hardware store and buy some better street numbers?
If you want, I'll go out there and bang that off there tomorrow with a hammer.
I think Matt.
I apologize to all the hillbillies. I didn't mean to disparage them and calling it a hillbilly sign. Any comments from the commissioners?
Yeah, I think it sounds like you've got a good plan in place, and like I say, we just need to maybe get some more people involved in doing some work out there. If we can't get the AmeriCorps folks to do some planting, maybe we should check with the local Boy Scout troop and see if there's any potential Eagle Scouts that would want to take on a project.
Yeah, it's a great idea.
We're on the water department land.
Great idea.
Does anybody have any contacts with any of the folks involved with that troop?
The kid that took the video for our meeting last year, I think his dad is one of the scout leaders.
Yeah.
And Tim Landman is a scout leader.
Yeah, I was going to say, is Tim Landman still there doing that? Yeah.
Do you guys know? Do you know those people?
I'll reach out.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, may I make a comment?
Yes, Fran.
I think there's using the Boy Scouts would be to do work on public property would possibly be a liability, financial and insurance wise. So I think that's something you'd at least have to look into before you moved on to contact the scout leaders.
Yeah, we could do that. I mean, they do it all the time. The Eagle Scouts are usually on public property. I had them working out on Sandy Neck years ago. I know they've worked in the Mashpee National Wildlife Refuge this year. But yeah, we could certainly run that through council.
Yeah, I would agree, Tom. I think it's a good comment, France, but I do believe these organizations have dealt with this hundreds, if not thousands of times before, and I would guess they have a kind of a blanket policy, which we should, per your suggestion, which is a good one, we should make sure they have it, but my sense is they probably do.
Okay, so I just wanted to bring this to the foreground now that all the towers are gone. That we and Chris knows we're interested, just as we were interested in the aesthetics of the water tank next to the school, and I'm sure he'll figure out a way to pester some of these vendors and get them to clean up whatever they left behind and things that they could help us with. I mean, if they're there to take out the siltation fence, maybe they could take the tires at the same time, just as a favor. But I mean, otherwise, we should take the tires out. I think they predate the cell tower.
As soon as the dump starts taking stuff, I can give them the tires, I can give them the mattresses, I can give them everything that's going on. Yeah. They do charge us, though. They don't take anything for free, even though it is us.
Okay, so we don't have to vote or anything on that. I just wanted to bring it forward. We do have some new business. There's a policy advisory recommendation that Commissioner Hoppenstadt has to tell us about.
Yeah, so that's just, you've all received a copy of it. It was a capital improvement plan that was put together by the Policy Advisory Committee. And I think right now it's in the hands of the Prudential Committee. I think Silvio presented it to the Prudential Committee. Correct me if I'm wrong, Fran, but you guys have not made any action on it yet, is my understanding?
No, we haven't discussed it thoroughly yet.
it seems to me like it might require some approvals and at least some work with the district. So some more public outreach, and it might be something that moves forward through a district meeting. Is that correct, or no?
You know, I don't know. I think it requires a great deal of work and effort, and to just, you know, make sure what's addressed as what's considered a capital project. And if, you know, it's something that we just want to have, or if it's necessary to have it at an annual district meeting and have it, you know, approved every year, which, you know, I don't know, but, you know, these things change over time, and the amount of money that you're expected to spend is certainly going to change over time. So, you know, we need to thoroughly dissect it and then discuss, you know, discuss the ramifications of that with both the water department and the fire department, because you're the ones that make the large capital expenses. You know, the large capital projects is not the Prudential Committee. Our costs are basically fixed.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Sorry to put you on the spot there, but that was my sense, was that it still is kind of in preliminary stages. But to me, it made sense for us to put together a draft, and it does help with some coordinated efforts on behalf of both the fire department and the water department and Prudential in terms of capital expenditures. So I don't know if the other commissioners have had an opportunity to read through it. It's pretty straightforward. It would be a living document that would be adjusted and altered every year, because, you know, it's hard to plan 5 years out, which is what it is. It's a 5-year plan, but it's really not a 5-year plan. It just goes into place, and then every year it gets revised. So does anybody have any questions about it?
No, I think it's always good to have capital planning as part of any kind of organization, particularly one. I think the good news is that most of the large capital expenses of the water district have been taken care of in recent years. And I think we did talk about the treatment plant, and that it's not required at this point. So hopefully we'll be good for a little while. We have 2 new tanks. We got some new trucks. What else, Chris? What else will be going forward?
Yeah, well, just looking at you never know what's going to pop up. It's changing all the time. Everything is. Looking at this, I only had a couple little questions on it, and I'm only talking from past experience here and everything else. But one of the things that's in here is they want to close everything out 6 minutes after completion of the discontinuation as the projects close out. The only thing that happens is sometimes we put retainage in there for a year, something to that effect. So we'd have to have some kind of spec where we could hold out so much money if he wants to accept a certain portion on different jobs. I have in the past at least held money back for up to a year before turning back, to make sure, like, we put a road in once to make sure the road didn't sag or anything like that. So that kind of concerns me a tiny bit on that. And of course, just make sure it's run by legal. I don't know if it has been or anything like that. I know that sometimes when things are voted on in district meeting, that's what they're supposed to be spent on. And I can understand that when you're done, you got to put it back to the general. The money just doesn't go away. You borrow $30,000, you use $5,000 left over. You've still already borrowed 30. I think you got to take that extra 5 and throw it back to the general fund, and then they can use what they want then. So I don't know if you have to say that in here or if it makes it that way.
May I respond to Chris?
Yep.
Just so you know, we haven't gone through it, Chris, and the committee understands that, 6 months is, certainly not a long enough time, to say, well, after 6 months, you have to send the money back because you have delays. The perfect example are the water lines on Main Street and those delays that were years. So, and the treasurer hasn't gone through it to look at it. So it's, it's barely even a draft.
Okay. Yep.
But certainly we want your concerns and we want fire's concerns before we come up with anything. But, what we're looking at is what's proposed is a 5-year plan, which I don't, once you have a 5-year capital plan, I don't see, barring, some sort of catastrophe like a pandemic, that, plan would need to be adjusted on a yearly basis. But, that's just my opinion, not the committee's.
Tom, is there any action that we have to take tonight on this, do you think?
No, none at all. Just be thinking about it, and like Fran said, they are seeking our input on it. So as you have a few minutes and want to scratch some notes next to your draft copy, I think that would be great. And maybe sometime down the road here, not too far, we'll send them some comments on it.
Okay, great, thank you. The only other thing we have tonight is let people know about the upcoming meetings, and I know it says tentative dates because of the COVID situation, but we have a Prudential Committee meeting on May 21st to finalize the warrant for the district meeting. We have a Santuit Civic Association Budget and Candidates Night scheduled for June 16th. And of course, these are tentative dates. We have a district election on June 23rd and the annual district meeting June 24th. So do we think, Fran, that those are more than tentative now? You need to unmute. There you go.
I don't think the Civic Association meeting's going to meet. We're going to be discussing the annual meeting tomorrow night. Just so you know, tonight, COMM and West Barnstable are holding their annual meetings in their fire department parking lots. Because we're a municipality, we're allowed to hold meetings in the great outdoors. So we're going to be discussing, where we'd like to put up a tent and, what the process is for that. So, stay tuned.
Right. Okay. In terms of setting another date, I'm going to suggest that unless we have something that is immediate, that we do not meet in June and try to attend some of these meetings that will be happening and represent the district well, the water department well. Is there any comments or responses to that idea?
Is the budget all set?
Yeah, we passed the budget.
Right. So we're good with, everything's good and in place there. So we're secured with that. So yeah, I'd agree. I mean, it's going to be a busy June, hopefully.
Right.
I would agree too, but I would also like, before we close out here, thank Commissioner Hoppenstadt for his report on the last report, which I think we should, do whatever we can do to implement and support. And secondly, just a question, you mentioned elections, Mr. Chairman. Do I get this right that Commissioner Hoppenstadt is going to run again for Water Commissioner? Okay,
Yes,
excellent.
I'm on the ballot.
Well, thank you for doing that.
Thank you.
Mark, the only thing we have coming up before a July meeting would occur is our annual contract for installation of sideline to service and emergency repairs will expire on June 16th. So we will need to vote to sign a new contract at some point before then.
Before June 16th.
Before July 16th.
Before July 16th. Okay. All right.
So that has to go out to bid, right?
Yes.
Yes.
So when does it go out to bid?
As soon as I give her the dates, we have the contract ready. It'll go out and usually it's a week before the meeting. That's why we were waiting to see what the meeting was, or a couple days before we open it, so that we can have it fresh and ask the next day. So
Do you have a suggestion for when we should meet to accommodate that?
I was thinking the third Wednesday would be enough, I believe, which
In
if
June
we
or
look at
July?
it right now, and well, if we do the third Wednesday in July, it would be the 15th, which is the day before the contract ends. So if there's a problem, the only thing is we'd have to ask them to
Okay.
carry the contract they have right now.
How about the week before July 15th?
We could do that and have a meeting July 8th if you wanted.
Yeah. How does that sound, guys?
Sounds good to me.
Okay. So we still like this 5 o'clock time? I know some of you do. 5 o'clock on July 8th would be the next meeting,
Sounds good.
It's a
Second that
Zoom
motion.
meeting.
as well as a Zoom meeting if we have to, yeah.
Okay.
So that'll be, I don't think we need a vote for that. We'll just set it as July 8th at 5 o'clock for the next commissioners meeting. And I do encourage attendance at the district meetings coming up in June.
You meant July 8th, didn't you?
July 8th, I'm sorry.
And for the district meeting, should we, Jen, should you say, post those as public meetings for the commissioners so that all three of us can show up? Two or
I
more?
will, yes. Yep.
Good, thank you. Any further business for the commission?
I just want to mention something before we hang up. With all the new COVID regulations that are coming out and everything, I'm still not going to open up the department to the public. I'm going to keep it like it's going right now. It's running pretty smooth. It's going to keep it so that we can do a basic clean and try to get a good cleaning done on the end of the week and everything. With the fire department has a fogger and they've offered to come in and fog after hours on Friday or something like that. So I'd like to keep it the way we have it now. I think it's working pretty well. I can still go outside and help people if they need to be helped at a distance, put things down, walk away, let them pick them up and everything. But I just wanted you guys to know I'm not planning on opening up at least in the next month or so, until the next stage at least or more.
Thank you, Chris. I did participate in the village call this Monday. And I was pleased to hear from the chief that there had been no new COVID cases in Katuah in the last 38 days. So
Right.
It's very lucky, I guess. I don't know what the right term would be, but I do think he also announced that they do have masks, N95 masks, and hand sanitizer available at the fire department station for people who would like to schedule a pickup for those. I think they're giving priority to seniors for the masks.
Seniors
They've
are at
already
risk.
distributed over 700 of them. They have 2,000 available. So if anybody wants one, contact the station.
Correct. And thank you for sitting in on that meeting. I had given Paul a quick note just to put out, but I had a family kind of emergency that I had to attend to. So I thank you for giving a little report there and everything also.
Okay, it being 6:10 p.m., I would adjourn the meeting of the water commissioners. Is there a motion to that effect?
So moved.
I'll second that.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Thank you very much for attending.
Thank you, guys.
Bye,
Stay safe,
folks.
everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jen.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.